The chamber of the Galactic Council was vast, brighter than 100 suns, yet heavy with silence. Billions of eyes across the stars were fixed on this single hall, waiting to witness history. The council chamber floated at the heart of the Orion Spire, a structure so tall it pierced the edge of space. From its crystal walls, entire galaxies could be seen turning slowly, their lights like burning jewels. On this day, those galaxies seemed to watch with the same anticipation as the living beings who filled the chamber. The council members sat high upon their thrones.
Alice, creatures from 1,000 worlds?
Some had scales that shimmered with strange
colors, others had wings folded close to their bodies. Some were nothing more than flowing shadows contained by rings of light. Each one represented a civilization that had lasted for ages, people who believed themselves powerful, eternal, untouchable. Yet despite their pride, there was fear in the air. For today, they had summoned the humans. The name carried weight, heavier than they cared to admit. For years they had tried to control Earth, to bind its people under council laws, to force them into submission. But humanity had resisted, always resisting, always silent, always watching, and never truly broken. The chamber lights dimmed slightly as the envoy of Earth entered. The sound of footsteps echoed across the endless floor, each step sharp, calm, unhurried. The envoy walked alone, without soldiers, without guards, without weapons. In a hall where alien leaders carried symbols of power and authority, the human entered as if none of it mattered. Gasps and whispers filled the balconies where countless species watched the event unfold. A serpent-like alien coiled in its seat muttered to its neighbor, its voice trembling. "Why do they come alone? Do they not fear us?" Another, with a body like burning glass, responded in a voice that cracked the air. "They must be fools. Or perhaps they hide their fear behind stillness." Yet even as the aliens spoke, their voices lowered, their words unsure. The envoy of Earth did not stop to acknowledge them. The figure walked forward, head slightly bowed, eyes fixed ahead. No emotion touched their face, no hesitation slowed their steps. At last, they reached the center of the chamber, where a single circle of light waited. There, under the full gaze of the Galactic Council and billions watching through the broadcasts. Across the galaxy, humanity's envoy stood, silent stretched. The council leader, a being with silver wings that cast shadows over the chamber, leaned forward. His voice echoed like rolling thunder. "Human envoy, you stand before the council. The charges against your kind are known. You resist our law, our order. You defy our judgment. Will you now bow and submit, or will you face destruction?" The words shook the air, but the envoy did not move. They stood calm, their hands folded behind their back. Their silence spread through the chamber like a cold wind, unsettling, unshaken. Aliens began to whisper again. Voices rose from every corner. "Why do they not tremble?" one said, its many eyes blinking nervously. "Do they not understand their danger?" asked another. "No one stands silent before the council," muttered a third, "not unless they are already broken, or unless they hide something we cannot see." Still, the human envoy did not speak. Seconds turned into long moments. The silence pressed harder than any threat. For the first time in centuries, the Galactic Council felt powerless, not because of weapons, not because of armies, but because of a single human standing quiet in their presence. The council leader spread his wings wider, a flare of light filling the chamber. His tone sharpened. "Answer, human. Speak or be judged in silence." Slowly, the envoy lifted their head. Billions watching leaned closer through their screens. The light from the galaxies above reflected in the envoy's eyes, cold and steady, like the depths of space itself. The whispers fell away. The chamber grew still. When the human finally spoke, their voice was low, calm, and clear. "We warned you." The words rang through the chamber, simple yet heavy as a falling star. The alien leaders shifted uneasily. Some clenched their claws, others flickered with nervous light. Those who had laughed at humanity before now found no humor in the voice they heard. The weight of centuries lay in those 3 words. The human envoy did not explain, did not plead, did not shout. They simply let the silence return after their message. Somehow the silence was louder than any weapon. Across the stars, billions felt the chill. They remembered the times humans had given warnings. They remembered the moments when humanity had spoken only once and then acted without hesitation. They remembered the quiet strength of a species that had endured war, darkness, and extinction many times over and had always risen again. In the chamber, no one spoke now. Even the council leader, his wings trembling slightly, could not form an answer. For the first time in ages, the great Galactic Council felt the weight of fear pressing on them, not the fear of battle, not the fear of death, but the fear of a truth too late to undo. The human envoy lowered their gaze once more, waiting, patient, unbroken. And in that silence, billions across the stars realized something terrible. It was not the council who held power here. It was Earth, and Earth had warned them. The chamber did not return to life after those words. It remained cold and silent, as if every living creature inside had forgotten how to breathe. The human envoy stood still, as calm as a shadow, while the alien leaders shifted nervously in their high thrones. Their eyes, claws, and wings moved, but none dared to speak. In the upper balconies, where thousands of species filled the seats to watch, whispers slowly returned. They were low, shaken, fearful. One alien, with a body of molten crystal, flickered weakly and said to its neighbor, "They warned us before. Do you remember?" The neighbor, a creature with feathered scales, lowered its head. "Yes, we dismissed their words. We called them arrogant. We thought their numbers too few, their world too small. But humans never speak without meaning. I think we all know this." The council leader pressed his wings closer to his body, hiding his unease. He turned to the record keepers, who sat in circles of light around the chamber. "Play it," he commanded. "Show us the records of Earth." A beam of light appeared, bright and sharp. It opened a window in the middle of the chamber, where old recordings began to play. The voices of humans echoed, voices captured long ago when the council had first demanded submission. The first recording was of an old man, his eyes tired but steady, his voice calm. "We wish peace," he had said, "but we will not bow. If you bring war to us, know that Earth does not forget. We do not forgive lightly. You will regret forcing our hand." The chamber filled with the sound of those words spoken centuries earlier. Many council members had forgotten them. Some had never heard them at all. Now they echoed in every corner, a ghostly reminder of a moment ignored. Another recording followed. A young woman stood in ruins, smoke rising behind her. "You think we are weak because we suffer. You think we are broken because we bleed. But suffering is where we grow. And bleeding is where we learn to stand again. Do not mistake silence for surrender." The aliens shifted uncomfortably. Their skin shivered, their claws tapped, their eyes darted. They had mocked these warnings when they first heard them. They had laughed at Earth's defiance. After hearing the envoy's calm words, "We warned youth," those old voices felt different. The images faded. The chamber dimmed once again. A council member with long tendrils of silver light spoke at last. "They warned us again and again, and we dismissed them. Perhaps we believed them too small to matter. Perhaps we believed the galaxy too vast for one world to resist. But look at them now. They stand silent before us. That silence is not weakness, is the memory of every warning we ignored." Another alien slammed its claw against the armrest. "This is madness. They cannot be so dangerous. Their fleets are smaller, their worlds fewer. They cannot challenge the council's will." But even as the alien shouted, its voice wavered. It did not sound certain. From the lower seats, a shadowed figure leaned forward. Its body rippled like smoke contained by chains of light. Its voice was deep and hollow. "You speak of numbers, speak of fleets. You do not understand. Humans do not fight with numbers. They fight with will. That is their weapon. And it has destroyed stronger empires than this council will ever be." The words fell heavy. No one argued. The envoy of Earth did not lift their head again. They remained still, letting the weight of silence grow. The council members felt it pressing into their chests, heavier than the brightest suns. They remembered, though they did not want to admit it, the history of human-defiant small wars. Battles fought in silence, victories carved out of despair. A voice rose from the far balcony, trembling, frightened. What if they were never seeking peace? What if all along they only gave us warnings to test us? And now that we have ignored them? The voice trailed off, unable to finish. The council leader spread his wings wide, his tone sharp, desperate. Enough. We are the council. We have ruled the stars for ages. No single world can defy us. No species can threaten us. Humanity will learn its place. But the words rang hollow. The silence that followed was stronger than his roar. Every eye turned again to the envoy of Earth. The figure stood calm, silent, unbending. Their stillness was more terrifying than any army. And deep inside, every alien in that chamber began to feel the same fear. Perhaps humanity's warnings had never been empty. Perhaps the council had already made its greatest mistake. Far from the shining council chamber, across the darkness of space, a quiet storm was forming. It was not the storm of thunder or fire, but of metal and silence. Human fleets moved through the void, vast shadows against the stars. They did not broadcast their presence. They did not send messages of threat, no announcements, no demands. Only silence. And this silence was louder than the roar of any fleet. In system after system, human ships slipped into hidden positions. They did not gather in one place. They spread wide, unseen, watching. Every vessel moved with purpose, every crew trained for what was coming. Where other empires might have raised banners and trumpets before war, humanity prepared with cold patience on distant outposts. Alien scouts reported strange disappearances. A patrol ship vanished, one report said. An entire convoy gone without signal, said another. At first, the council dismissed these stories. They called them accidents, space storms, mechanical failure. But then the whispers began. The whispers spoke of shadows swallowing fleets, of humans who struck and then vanished, leaving nothing behind but silence. Back in the chamber, some council members received these reports with growing unease. A scaled ambassador hissed in fear. They do not announce themselves. They do not boast. This is not the way of the weak. This is the way of predators. Others shook their heads, refusing to believe. They cannot stand against us. Our fleets are countless. Their world is small. They cannot fight the will of the entire council. Yet their voices cracked as they spoke, and their eyes avoided the envoy who stood still in the center, silent as stone. Across the galaxy, human colonies prepared as well. Factories that once built machines of farming now forged weapons of war. Shipyards burned with light as vessels rose, black holes like jagged blades. Families whispered goodbye to their sons and daughters, sending them to serve under banners. That carried no motto, no prideful words only, the emblem of Earth. Stark and simple, aliens who lived near human space began to feel the change. Traders who once crossed into Earth's territory came back pale and shaken. They are not speaking, one trader said. They look at us, but they say nothing. And in their silence, there is something I cannot understand, something that frightens me more than any weapon. Whispers spread through the outer colonies of the council. Species that once mocked humanity began to watch the stars nervously. They remembered stories, old stories, about humans in their early wars. They remembered that humans never warned twice. And they acted completely. With nothing held back in the council chamber, debates grew louder. One alien leader slammed his claw against the table. We must crush them now, strike their fleets before they can rise. Another hissed in reply, and if we fail, what if their silence hides strength we cannot measure? It's a chamber filled with noise, with arguments, with fear wearing the mask of pride. But the human envoy in the center said nothing. They stood unmoving, their face calm, as if the council's shouting was meaningless. Their silence weighed heavier than all the voices combined. Outside, as far beyond the council's eyes, the gathering storm grew larger. Human fleets darkened constellations. their shadows blotting out starlight. Some worlds looked up to find their skies gone black, covered by the silent movement of ships. One alien child, staring at the endless wall of metal above, asked its parent in trembling voice, "Who are they?" The parent whispered only one word, "Humans." And across the galaxy, the realization spread humanity did not need to roar. Their silence was enough. Their silence was a promise. The council, proud and ancient, began to feel what they had never felt before. The storm was already here. The council chamber no longer felt like a place of authority. Once it had been a hall of pride, where the rulers of 1,000 civilizations spoke as if their words were law across the stars. Now it was filled with cracks of fear, cracks of doubt, cracks that no light could hide. The alien leaders shouted over one another, their voices rising higher with every passing moment. A winged ambassador beat its feathers in anger. We must act now. Humans gather their fleets. They prepare for war. If we wait, we invite destruction upon us all. Across from it, a serpent-like being hissed in fury. No, to attack them now would be to admit our fear. The council does not bow to threats. We crush resistance, not beg for peace. Another creature, its body glowing with shifting light, interrupted. You do not understand? Look at their envoy. Look at the silence they carry. They do not shout, they do not plead, they do not threaten. Do you not feel it? They have already chosen their path. They have already judged us. The chamber grew louder. Voices crashed like storms. Claws slammed into stone tables. Tails whipped the floor. Wings shook the air. Every council member demanded a solution, but no voice rose. Above the others, the council was breaking not from an attack, but from fear. Billions across the galaxy watched this chaos unfold. The broadcast carried every sound, every word, to distant worlds. In the homes of ordinary beings, families whispered. The council is afraid, they said. The humans have not spoken, but already the council trembles. The envoy of Earth stood unmoving in the center of it all. Their head was lowered, their eyes hidden in shadow, their hands clasped behind their back. They did not answer the shouting. They did not defend themselves. They did not attack. Their stillness was more terrifying than violence, for it forced every alien to look inward and question their own strength. Finally, a voice rose above the storm. It was not loud, but it was steady. A council elder, older than most species could imagine, leaned forward. Its body was frail, its form wrapped in silver threads of light. "I've lived long enough to see empires rise and fall," it said, "and in all my years, I have never seen a species hold silence as a weapon. You argue as if victory lies in numbers, in fleets, in firepower. But victory lies here." The elder pointed a trembling finger toward the human envoy, in their stillness. "They do not tremble before us, yet all of you tremble before them. Ask yourselves what that means." The chamber fell quiet. The words cut deeper than any blade. Every leader looked at the envoy again, and in their silence they saw something they could not name, but silence could not hold forever. One of the younger leaders, desperate and angry, slammed its fist into the table. "Enough of this fear. They are only one world. They cannot face the entire council. We must remind them of their place. If they defy us, then we burn their world to ash." The word spread through the chamber like poison. Some leaders agreed, nodding, their voices rising in support. "Yes, destroy them before they strike. Crush their fleets. Break their spirit once and for all." Others recoiled, horror on their faces. "Do you not see? That is what they want. Strike them now, and we will unleash something we cannot control. Humans do not forgive. They do not forget. You would doom us all." The council split down the middle. Half cried for war, half cried for caution. Voices rose again, arguments louder, harsher, more desperate. But outside the chamber, across the galaxy, more whispers spread. Ordinary beings who had never feared the council before now saw them as weak, divided, broken. That unity that had once ruled the stars was collapsing before their eyes, and still, the human envoy remained silent. At last the council leader rose from his throne. His silver wings unfurled wide, casting long shadows over the chamber. His voice thundered, desperate to reclaim authority. This council will not be ruled by fear. Humanity will bow, or humanity will be destroyed. There is no other choice. Words echoed, but they no longer carried the strength they once did. They sounded hollow, forced, brittle. For everyone in that chamber, and everyone watching across the stars, already knew the truth. The council was broken, and in the silence of a single human, its power was crumbling. The galaxies above the council chamber turned slowly, but their light seemed dimmer now. Even the stars themselves felt weaker in the shadow that was spreading across the void. Far beyond the reach of the council's walls, across systems and clusters, the fleets of Earth moved. They came without music, without signal, without banners. Their hulls were black, swallowing the light of suns. Their shapes were sharp, cold, designed not for beauty but for purpose, and their purpose was clear. On distant worlds, the first to see them were not soldiers but farmers, workers, travelers. A child looked up at the night sky, pointing with trembling hands. The constellations that had always guided their people were gone, covered by endless walls of darkness. An entire arm of the heavens had vanished. When their parents followed the child's gaze, they too fell silent. The stars had not disappeared. Something far greater had come between them and the light. Whispers spread from world to world. The humans are here. The words traveled faster than ships, faster than the council's orders. Fear moved like wildfire through the colonies. In the outposts near the rim, alien patrols vanished one by one. Ships sent out to investigate did not return. Sometimes a broken transmission was caught, a voice screaming in panic before the signal died. Other times there was nothing at all, only silence. The silence was the worst. Back in the council chamber, the reports arrived in waves. 1,000 worlds sent messages of fear, fleets missing, trade routes empty, stations abandoned. The shadows of human ships swallowing entire sectors, the council shouted in panic. "They are surrounding us," cried one. "This cannot be. Your fleets are not so large," shouted another. Yet the evidence was before them, flooding their screens. Constellation near human space grew darker, swallowed piece by piece. The council leader slammed his wings down in fury. They seek to frighten us with illusions. They cannot truly hold such power. But even as he spoke, a new image appeared in the chamber's center. It was sent from an observation post near the rim. The broadcast shook with static, the image blurring, yet the truth was unmistakable. A fleet larger than anything the council had ever seen. Ships upon ships, stretching across the horizon, blotting out the stars. They moved in silence, their black holes reflecting nothing, their lights dimmed. They were not here to be seen. They were here to remind the galaxy that humanity had come. Gasps echoed through the chamber. Some leaders trembled visibly. A voice whispered from the balconies, "Trembling, that is no fleet, that is judgment." Billions watching across the stars felt the same chill. The envoy of Earth finally lifted their head. Their eyes were steady, reflecting the faint glow of the broadcast. They did not smile. They did not frown. They only looked at the council as if nothing here surprised them. For the humans, this was not a threat. This was not a display. It was a promise being kept. The shadow of Earth had arrived, and there was no turning it back. The council chamber shook with noise. Fear had broken into anger, and anger had broken into panic. Voices rose from every throne. Louder than thunder, sharper than knives, one leader pounded its claws into the table. "We must beg for peace. Send an ambassador to Earth at once before it is too late." Another snarled, its eyes burning. "Beg, never. We are the council. We bow to one world, the entire galaxy will laugh at us. We must strike now. Burn their fleets, crush their planet." The arguments split the chamber apart. Some screamed for war, others for peace, and still others froze in silence. Too afraid to choose either side, billions watched across the stars. They saw the council divided, leaders shouting over one another like frightened children. The image of power was gone, The council no longer looked like rulers of the galaxy. They looked weak, fragile, and lost. In the center of it all, the envoy of Earth stood still. Their hands remained folded behind their back, their face calm. They did not speak, but every alien I kept turning toward them. The humans did not need to shout. Their silence said everything. At last, the council leader tried to regain control. His wings spread wide, his voice rolling through the chamber. Enough. We will vote. War or peace. Humanity must not hold us hostage with silence. But even his words shook, spoke like one who had already lost. The elder with silver threads of light rose again. Its voice was soft, but steady. You speak of choice. But I ask, do we truly have one? Humanity gave us warnings long ago. It gave us time to listen. We did not listen. And now, the elder looked at the envoy, whose eyes burned like cold fire. Now I fear the choice is no longer ours. The chamber fell quiet. Every leader turned to the human. For the first time since entering the hall, the envoy of Earth moved. They lifted their head, and their gaze swept across the chamber. Billions leaned closer to their screens. The silence pressed down like the weight of a planet. Then the envoy spoke. Their voice was calm, steady, without anger, without fear. You should have listened. The words echoed through the chamber. They were not shouted, but they cut deeper than any weapon. Every leader felt the truth in them, heavy and cold. Some lowered their heads in shame. Others clenched their fists in helpless fury. But none could deny it. The council had been warned, and now the humans had spoken their last. The chamber was frozen. After the envoy's words, no one dared to breathe too loudly. The vast hall, built to echo with the power of thousands of voices, now carried only silence. Even the watchers across the galaxy, billions of beings huddled before glowing screens, felt the weight of that silence pressing against them. The human envoy stood in the center of the circle of light, their figure calm, their posture unbroken. Slowly, they lifted their gaze and looked upon the council as if measuring them, as if seeing through every lie, every excuse, every false mask of power. When they spoke again, their voice was low, but it carried to every corner of the chamber. We came to you for peace. We offered it freely, though you did not deserve it. We gave you warnings, though you did not listen. We endured your arrogance, your threats, your chains, and still you mocked us. The words struck like blows. Many leaders lowered their eyes, unable to meet the envoy's stare. Others shifted uneasily, their claws tapping, their wings twitching. The strongest voices of the galaxy looked like frightened children. The envoy continued. You called us weak because we were patient. You called us fragile because we showed mercy. You mistook our silence for fear. But silence was our kindness, not our surrender. And you threw that kindness away. From the balconies, whispers rippled. Ordinary beings who had always trusted the council now leaned forward with wide eyes. For the first time, they wondered if they had been wrong. For the first time, they saw the truth. Humanity had never been silent out of fear. Humanity had been silent out of choice. The envoy's eyes hardened, their voice steady and cold. You touched our world. You spilled the blood of our people. You thought there would be no price to pay. But every star you see in this sky will remember this day. And so will every child born on Earth. You should not have tested us. You should not have touched us. You should not have forced us to speak these words. The council chamber was deathly. Still, even the leader, wings spread in defiance, said nothing. He knew his power meant nothing now. The envoy's voice dropped lower. Almost a whisper, yet somehow louder than thunder. These are our final words to you. The message was clear. Humanity had spoken. It would not speak again. Across the galaxy, countless species shivered as the broadcast carried those words into their homes. Many turned to each other with dread in their eyes, asking the same question in hushed tones. What happens now? The envoy did not wait for answers. Lowered their gaze once more, silent, unbending. Behind them, shadows of human fleets moved closer across the stars. The end had already begun. The silence inside the chamber stretched until it felt unbearable. Every alien heart, no matter how many limbs, wings, or shells it beat inside, felt the weight pressing down. Human envoy had spoken their final words, and with them, the balance of the galaxy shifted. Far above, through the crystal walls of the chamber, the stars seemed dim. It was not because the galaxies had moved, it was because something vast now drifted between them. The fleets of Earth were closing in. At first, they appeared as faint shadows, barely visible against the void. Then the shadows grew, swallowing whole constellations. Massive starships, dark as obsidian, advanced without sound, without signal. Their formation was perfect, unbroken. It's like the march of an army that had rehearsed this moment for centuries, on distant worlds. Billions looked to their skies and trembled. The constellations they had known since birth were gone, replaced by a wall of steel and silence. No broadcasts came. No war cries. Only the terrifying stillness of a force that had already made its decision. Inside the chamber, reports flooded in. Entire sectors blocked out, cried one officer. Patrol. Fleet's gone, shouted another. The voices shook with panic. Some leaders tried to speak of resistance, but their words collapsed under the truth glowing on their screens. The council leader rose one last time. His silver wings spread wide, but they no longer looked powerful. They looked desperate.
Eyes.
Voice, once rolling like thunder, now cracked like brittle glass. We must fight. We must show them the council cannot be broken. But the other leaders did not move. They looked at him with hollow eyes, for in their hearts they knew everything was already broken. The envoy of Earth did not need to raise their voice. They simply looked at the council, calm and unflinching, as if the galaxy itself were already theirs. And in that moment, every alien realized the same truth. The council's mistake had not been in underestimating Earth's fleets. It had been in underestimating Earth's will. The chamber shook as the first human ships entered. Orbit above the council's homeworld. The massive hulls blotted out the sky, their shadows stretching across oceans and mountains below. Entire cities looked up, drowning in fear. The envoy's final words echoed again in every mind. We warned you. There was no need for more speeches, no need for more threats. Humanity's silence spoke louder than any weapon, and as the darkness of Earth's fleets covered the heart of the galaxy, the truth settled over every living being across the stars. The Galactic Council had made a deadly mistake.